All right. So I think we're going to get started. Eventually, I'll put this video away, but I thought at the beginning, just keep the video on so everybody knew who the talking guy was on the other end. So welcome to the NSBA webinar series. Today, we're going to cover some good stuff around tech tips and tools from working from home. So quick introduction. Who's this guy talking on the screen? My name is Jody. I am the director of the Technology Experience and Enablement team. So I get to work with people to understand how they use technology and then try to make things a little bit better for them. So you can imagine over these last couple of weeks, we've been pretty busy. So today, what I want to do is just go over those tech tips. How is it that we can work from home just a little bit better? I think over the last couple of weeks, we've gotten ourselves settled. We're at home now. What are the next things we can think about? How do we rethink how we work at home just a little bit, because circumstances are, if you're the same as me, a little bit different than they were just a short time ago. So before we get started, a few introductions about me and the company that I work for. So I work for WBM Technologies. WBM's a managed service provider. We are headquartered right here in Saskatoon. We've been around for about 70 years. So 70 years young. We have a long history in Saskatoon, the Saskatchewan and Western Canadian community. And we've been a really growing organization since I've started at WBN anyway. I'm not taking credit for that, but it's been an incredible 16 years. We have 4 areas of expertise. So a lot of you will probably know us about our managed print practice, but we also do a lot around end user computing, procurement of computers, those kind of things. Enterprise service desks. So we actually work with a lot of Western Canada's enterprise service desks. If there's any questions at an organization like SAS Power or others, they'll actually be talking to WBM employees when they've got those tier 1 calls. And then data and security. A lot of you will also know us from being able to help with some of those managed service scenarios and opportunities, engagements that we're really, really proud of, and we're really, really happy to be working with members of the community on. And we're focused on data-driven outcomes, which means when we're working with an organization, it's not just, we just don't want to keep the lights on. We want to make sure that we're actually moving things forward, being innovative, looking for new ways to help businesses. And we really understand it's tough times out there. We certainly appreciate that things have changed a lot in the last couple of weeks, and we just want to know that you've got an IT company there that's there for you, and we look forward to just having this conversation. So enough about WBM, and I would say enough about me. But like, as you can see, that is me. You can actually got me on the video as well. But yeah, I've been privileged to work at WBM for 16 years, and yeah, and I'm super happy to be here with the NSBA. So let's get started. So how I often like to start things is not necessarily launch into the topic at hand. We were talking about tips and tricks, and I wanted to just break the ice a little bit with a tip that came up a couple of times for me and has been incredibly handy. This is good for the office, and this is good at home. And it is simply just a really hot key combination, which is Windows plus D. So if you're like me, there's lots of times where your computer is just full of windows, you've got tons of applications, all those kind of things going all at once. Sometimes you just want to clear the decks. And in the past, I've been hitting minimize, minimize, minimize. There's a couple of really cool things you can do just to clear the decks really quick. And one of them is Windows D. So next time you get a chance, when you've got a whole bunch of windows open and you just want to get straight to your desktop and clear everything, Windows D. Or you can actually also find that in the bottom right-hand corner of your home screen. There's a tiny, tiny little button there. If you click that, that'll also clear the desktop. But I just use the Windows key and D. So hopefully that'll help you as we go through. So when I learned that I would get the opportunity to speak to a lot of you about this new reality that we're in and working from home, I started to do a lot of research. And there are plenty of resources, blogs, guides, downloadable items that are talking about working from home. There's a lot of really good resources out there, and I posted just a couple of those. But as I was doing my research, what I realized was the stuff that spoke to me was the stuff of, or the personal experiences. It was the posts where they were talking about how they were affected, how they personally were going through things. So I wanted to try to make this personal, to talk to you a little bit about what I was going through, some of the things that I didn't expect in working from home. And so a lot of this is going to be based on some of the personal things that I read in those blogs, or personal things directly from me. But obviously, there's a lot of really good resources out there. I encourage you to look at these links. We're going to post these later, but I really want you to take a look at that and to just make sure that you're able to access those as well. So what we want to do, though, is talk about three things in working from home that is incredibly important. We've already gone through part one, which was the tip of the day. Part two, we want to talk briefly about security. I think if we're going to talk about productivity and safety, if we're not doing our work in a secure way, productivity especially just doesn't matter quite as much. We want to make sure that we're doing it in a secure way. Productivity, now that we're working at home, we're not working with our coworkers the same way. How can we be more productive? How do we actually stay in contact and get the work done? And obviously safety is something that we're all incredibly concerned with these days. So part two, working from home and security. So we had an email in our organization come out, even for ourselves, even though we're a tech company, realizing that this was something that a lot of people, even in our own organization, was going to be new to them, and working from home. And so we had Ilya, who is one of our security experts, send us some information just about how we could secure ourselves from home. And there is 4 bullet points that I took from that. Incredibly important, just to make sure that the devices that we're using at home, those personal computers, whether it's something we took from the office, but there's a lot of people who are reusing the devices that they already had at home, to make sure those are patched and to make sure that those are updated. So just recently, January 2020, Windows 7 actually went end of life. So we want to have a look at our personal computers and just make sure we're using the most up-to-date operating systems, even if it's a Mac computer or a Windows computer. Make sure that we're doing that, making sure that we're running the most current operating system, and that operating system is getting their security patches. We also want to make sure that we're running a more current antivirus. Again, incredibly important to making sure that we're working securely. There's a lot of really good deals out there, I think, from organizations like Sophos, for example, who are running deals to make sure that the client community has access to current antivirus, for the exact reason that we talked about before. People are working from home, and it is a bit of a scary world out there. The bad guys realize that certain people that people are more vulnerable because we're now outside of our networks, and we want to make sure that we've got that antivirus going. And then there's some things that we can do at home also. I like that point that Ilya brought out. I copied it directly from him. Isolate yourself from your kids. We're not talking literally, we're talking virtually. And to be able to actually use that router that we may have, there's times where we can actually seclude the information or seclude our network from the stuff that our kids are doing. So we know our kids are at home now, they might be a little bit bored, they're clicking on some links that perhaps we don't want that information to be in the same place as our work information. So the idea that we can actually use our router to divide that information, have a work area for our network, and then the area where we do all the other stuff, just to make sure that those two things are secluded. And then also reviewing Wi-Fi security information, updating passwords, that kind of thing for your Wi-Fi. Even the idea of not necessarily publishing that you've got a Wi-Fi out there will really help to make sure that the Wi-Fi security configuration is correct. So just some things that even I took to heart and will be doing, and making sure that we've got, even at my home, these types of things all secured so that I can work confidently from home under these new circumstances. The next one just is around productivity. And this one connects with me a little bit more because I'm not technical. So I want to make sure that I'm looking at things from through the non-technical lens. And the 3 things I wanted to think about, again, things that have affected me specifically, is just looking at my network and how I'm using the devices on my network, how I'm actually going to be working with my coworkers now, the team that I lead. How do I keep in connection with them? And the idea that we've got some new tools to be able to utilize for this is something that's connecting with me. So the ability to start a group chat, and also using a technology that's been available to us for a while, but that's video. How can we use video a little bit better to actually to move us forward? So I wanted to go through that. So the idea of that get wired scenario, what I realized from my situation before was I had that home network, and in the past I could work from home, no problem. I actually never thought about the wired network. I had one thing plugged in, that was my cable box. I was good. My wired connection kept me going. But things have changed, and now I've got two kids who are at home all the time. They're on the iPad, they're on the iPhone from time to time, downloading things or watching videos. I've got an extra adult here, so we've got three adults in the house. We all have an iPad, we all have an iPhone. We're using those, and that's on the wired network or wireless network. I've got a smart TV, I've got a Roku, an Apple TV, we've got game systems. Those are all sucking up bandwidth on the wireless network. And on top of it, I'm actually part of the problem too, because I'm in video chats now working from home. I'm doing webinars. I'm doing all these things and making sure that I'm trying to get my work done, but I'm also sucking up a lot of the wireless bandwidth. So what I want to do now, and what I was doing this weekend, was just terminating some of those jacks in the wall so that I can now actually make more use of the wired networks, both in my office and near my entertainment system specifically. Anytime you've got areas where those things are going to be in place, use that opportunity if you can to use your wired network, get those things off of the wireless. You'll not only see a better performance of those devices because now they're using the wired network, but the devices that still need to use wireless, like your iPhone and your iPad, you'll see better performance there as well. And that'll help both on the personal side of things and obviously on the work side of things. So definitely take a look at that. And if you're able to use the wired, get I bought on Amazon a $25 switch that I can, and some patch cables. And over the next couple of days, more and more things are going to be getting wired up in my house. And if at your workspace you aren't able to plug in, that's great. Still wire the things that you can. And like I said, your wireless network will be getting a lot better, and that'll really help with the performance even of the workspace that you're in, even if you can't use a wired connection. The next thing that I just wanted to talk about was the idea that we could also use group chat. So there's a lot of new tools available to us that are fantastic. One of the ones that we use is Teams. I'm not promoting Teams here, but the idea that we can connect with our team in a new way. One of the blog posts that I had posted in the slides before was one of Sasha's blog posts. And one of the things that she talked about in that was when she was working from home, because she's been working from home for years, was that she can now connect through a group chat and what that meant to her. And then after reading that blog post, I just realized how much our team group chat really meant to me over the last couple of weeks. Again, we're using Teams. I just wanted to show you here. It's the idea that this is different than an email. This is our group chat in Teams. You can see at the top, we've got it labeled T Party. That's Technology Enablement, Technology Experience and Enablement. And this is not email. This is different. It gives us the ability to have a running conversation. We can update each other on our progress if we're working on things together. We can ask each other questions, provide links that are of interest. We can bounce ideas off of each other. We can ask for help. And then we can do some fun things too with some GIFs or some images or memes. So we try to have some fun with it as well, and just use this as something that keeps us all connected. And after thinking about it, wow, this was a big one for me, and really at the top of my list in terms of how I've been able to keep connected with my team over the last 2 weeks, and it's been absolutely fantastic. The other one that I wanted to talk about real quick was the idea that we can use video. And video is kind of feeling like a bit of a new frontier, but it's not new. We've had access to video for years, but what I noticed is before this happened, this COVID-19 stuff happened, a lot of conferences, a lot of meetings that we were having virtually that could have used video, we just had the video cameras shut off. And now what we're finding is that more and more of our meetings, like this one, this is our AMA, our team is using the video chat. We've got James here. He's on the left with his podcast mic. He's got like an incredible setup at home. It's like he's meant to work from home. We've got Sasha in the top right. She's got her backgrounds there. She's got some virtual backgrounds that she can set up in Teams. And we got Kelvin here. And the idea that now we can use video to connect a little bit better together. We can see those emotions. We can connect. It's fantastic. And I think that previously, the thing I worried about was that, you're going to see the pictures in the background, or that one of my kids is going to burst in. But I don't worry about that anymore. I kind of embrace it a little bit. This is a picture where Brett came and dropped in our AMA, and I had my little daughter there. That's Emily in the top right. And it's fantastic. I mean, we're all in this reality together. And I've actually met so many coworkers' children just through this, because they've dropped in on a video call and said hello. And my coworkers have met my kids. I think personally, it's been great. Obviously, we don't want to be too disruptive in terms of this reality, but the idea that we can connect this way and get to know each other's families, I think has been a plus, a big plus for me. So the last thing that I wanted to talk about was just in terms of safety. And in the context of this webinar, we're talking about working from home. And why are we working from our home? It's for our own safety and the safety of others, especially those who are at risk. And it's not always easy. It's not always easy times staying in our houses. But in thinking about this webinar and being able to talk to all of you, I was really thinking about, with the technology that's available, it's helped. It's helped us to be able to stay connected and to stay inside. It makes staying inside just a little bit easier. And we've got a webinar. I know the NSBA is putting a webinar on a lot of the mental health and wellness ideas. I'm not going to touch too much on that. I think that webinar is going to be fantastic. I just wanted to touch on the idea that we can connect with the people we care about. And that's our friends, that's people at work, that's our families. And that does make staying inside a little bit easier. That makes us safer. I mean, last week was a bit of a tough one at WBM. We're no different than any other businesses, and these can be difficult times. But I can tell you from my own personal experience that the ability to reach out to you, members of our client community, reach out to coworkers at WBM, be able to reach out to family and have these technologies in hand, have really helped me stay inside the house right now. And I'm incredibly proud of the people that I get to work with and work for. And there's been so many great stories that we've been able to share through these technologies. I was talking to a client yesterday, or not yesterday, on Friday. And I told him it was a bit of a tough week. We had a couple of temporary layoffs, and he looked at me and said, Jody, this week has been a win for us, because he and his team were able to accomplish some things that they never would have even tried under other circumstances. But because they were thrown into it, because they had all these new circumstances, he was just blown away by how his team was able to band together, get a few things done, and so proud. And that was kind of the lift up that I needed, and may not have even had that chance to talk about or to have without the technology that we had in place. So, a chance to share some positive stories, to be able to connect. I think that is the big thing that we wanted to talk about, and to give some practical help as well. So there is some practical help that WBM and our team wanted to provide to the community members at the NSBA. That is some working from home resources. And there's a link up there at wbm.ca/go/working from home. And if you go to this link, and it'll be posted later, but there's two things that we have here. This is personal help for you or for your team. These are real people at the other end of this, and these are no cost resources to the NSBA. And the idea that you can either book an appointment, there's a self-scheduling appointment that will take you to a bookings page where you can book time with one of our experienced engineers to walk you through some of these scenarios, to walk you through some of these tools and how to use them a little bit differently, either personally or with your team. No cost to you. We are providing this, and this is published on our website. The other one right beside that, it says join the Teams call now. At this moment, we have one of our team members on an ongoing Teams call. And that is something where if you just have a quick question, you know, like when we were back at the office, there's always somebody who could help us. You just kind of peek over and say, hey, how do you do this? Well, we don't have that right now. And so this is the scenario that we're looking at. We want people to use that join the Teams call now so that you've got somebody to ask a quick question of, how do I do this under the circumstance? They're not technical, but they are people who will try. I've actually seen them resolve some pretty cool technical issues. But the idea that you've got somebody to talk to and just understand and be able to work through some things with you, we wanted to make sure that you understood that these were available, and hopefully somebody that's on this call will find that of help. And even if you just want to stop in and say hello, this AMA, that's what we had referenced before. We call it an Ask Me Anything. At the end of week 1, we said it was our group therapy session because that was a good place for us to just drop in. We knew that there was always somebody there and always somebody to talk to and be able to bounce those ideas off of. So it's always nice to talk to a live person and get some help there. So basically, that was what I wanted to talk to everybody today. I know that we may have a few questions in terms of how would we actually do this in a practical sense. I'll do my best to answer any questions, but that's what I've got right now. I just wanted to move that into the Q&A and see if I could help anybody out through that question and answer. Thank you very much, and we'll get into the Q&A.
Awesome, thanks, Jody. So we have our first question here. With so many video platforms available, do you recommend certain ones, or even keep a limit to the amount of video platforms you use through other contact source, etc.?
Yeah, and so I've had some experience with a few of these video platforms, and I do have some favorites. So the answer to that question is a lot of you may actually have available platforms through an existing license. So if you've got Office 365 licensing, I would certainly stick to the video platforms that you're seeing in there, which could be Skype, and we're using Teams. And in terms of the Microsoft ecosystem, we're definitely moving over to Teams. So if you've got an Office 365 license, you want to use one of these platforms, I would recommend using Teams as the platform. If you're totally starting fresh, Zoom has been another really good platform. We're doing this webinar on Zoom. I'm really happy with it. It's worked really good. I would say it's more specific to the video components. If you want to collaborate with your team members, have more video chat, a lot of file sharing, and some more integrations with the Office 365 suite, use Teams. If you want to do a lot of webinars, or you're just straight video and you don't have an Office 365 account, I think Zoom is also a really good way to go. So hopefully that answers the question on the video platforms. Those are my two favorites right now.
Yep. Thanks, Jody. So the next question is, how often is bandwidth being discussed with your clients as they work to get remote access to the team?
Yeah, so this is one of the top ones that we're looking at. After the security stuff, I think it is going to be bandwidth. That's what we're going to see from our clients. So security is going to be number one. We want to make sure that, again, they're working on the most up-to-date operating systems, get their antivirus going. And then as we're actually going through their home networking systems, just securing them and making sure they're working in their own zone. But then also looking at the bandwidth that they have. I think that SaskTel actually had put together a program for a month. You'd get a free upgrade. I might want to do a little research on that. That's something that got posted to an internal chat at WBM. I would say that bandwidth is something we're all going to be looking at. I know I looked at my own personal home package. I think that I'm good for now. I decided to wire up my house before I upgraded my wireless and my bandwidth. But we're talking about our customers about home bandwidth for sure.
I'm not seeing any more open questions. If anybody in the audience has any and they want to pop them into the question and answer panel, please go ahead. We're going to give you a couple of seconds just to think about that. But otherwise, I'm not seeing any other questions, Jody.
Okay.
Oh, here we go. New question. Are there any liability issues that we should be aware of regarding working from home?
That's a good question, Jackie. I wish I had some expertise in this particular field in terms of liability, whether those are more HR or legal type of things. I think that's something you may want to I wish I had more expertise. It would be something that we could post later and where you might be able to find some of that. But I think that if I offered an opinion, it wouldn't be accurate, and then I might be liable for my own opinion. So I will definitely get back to you on that and try to find some resources for you to look up in terms of those liability issues and what there is from working from home. It's changed a lot. And I would say that there's a lot of organizations like yourselves who are probably wondering those same questions. So we'll make sure we'll get that posted.
Okay, oh, here we go. Another one. Can you speak a little bit more about how to isolate yourself from your kids on the home router?
Yeah, so let me just find my notes here on that. So more modern routers have the ability to do that isolation. So I will actually get your contact info and I'll be able to provide some more information on that. I think that again, just because my abilities aren't quite as technical to be able to walk that through on a webinar might be difficult, but certainly I'll be able to get some of our technical experts to give you guidance on how to do that in general. Obviously those home routers are a little bit different. Some vary in age and those kind of things, but just give you some general tips and details there on how to be able to do that on the router side of things to be able to isolate yourself from some of that web traffic.
Okay, next up, are companies more vulnerable due to the current state of affairs? Are you remote working, or is a company's vulnerability similar to if they were working from their office?
So that's a great question. The simple answer is yes. The companies are more vulnerable just because anytime that things are kind of thrown into a little bit of chaos or there's that change or shift happening, that provides some vulnerability. And we're definitely seeing an uptick in the amount of, I would say, vulnerabilities and organizations and people who are trying to exploit those vulnerabilities. If you have some of those security policies, some of those security technologies and education for the people who are actually using them, that is going to mitigate a lot of that vulnerability. But yeah, people are definitely more vulnerable. I think that if we're going through some of the things that we mentioned before, we're less vulnerable using things like VPN with SSL encryption or things like multi-factor authentication will mitigate a lot of those. Again, we can get, I don't want to get into the technical details in those, but those are two things that WBM has implemented to make sure that our work from home scenario is those vulnerabilities are mitigated. We've gone through our own security awareness training. Those are some things that WBM has done to be able to mitigate those. But the simple answer is yeah, people need to be cautious out there, and the bad guys are trying to exploit the situation we're in right now.
Okay, I'm not seeing any more questions right now, Jody. Oh, here we go again. How familiar are you with POS, so point of sale systems? I saw an ad for Square. Is this a system worth investigating, or are there others?
So I haven't personally used Square, but I have paid using Square. So a few sole proprietorships. A photographer once, our family got a photography done by, and she had us pay using a system like Square. I'm not very familiar with some of the others that are out there, although I do know that there are a few. Square is the one I'm most familiar with, but only because I've had the ability to use it to actually pay some people for some services. So that's my limited knowledge on point of sale systems around Square. If you're wanting to use something like that, it's something that I could absolutely look up, Keith, but I don't have that much familiarity in terms of the setup or how I would link it to my bank account or any of those kind of things, or the overall security policies or back end things I'm not familiar with. But it worked really good.
So with Teams, do you have a set time each day for your TEE discussions?
So we don't have a daily stand-up, although that's something that I've been thinking of doing. What happens usually in the morning, I'm kind of on the 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. shift, and everybody kind of just comes in and says hello. It's fairly informal, although I do know that other organizations are using that to do kind of like a virtual daily stand-up and making sure that we're on track for projects and those kind of things. So with those, and I love that you got the TEE, yes, we use that a lot. But I personally do not have a time set aside yet to do those stand-up type discussions. We've been pretty good at maintaining that contact. And if you do use that link, Keith, you may see more than one member of the team in there, just because when things get a little quiet, we'll just go in. It's kind of like our virtual lobby, virtual lounge in a way, and we'll keep each other company. So we've been doing a good job of that. But people do use them for daily stand-ups, absolutely, and having a time set aside.
Okay. Again, we're back to no more questions on the board here. So it's kind of, again, I'll give a couple seconds for anybody who may want to ask something.
I will say too, in terms of connection and socializing, I've seen some interesting uses of either Zoom or Teams to bring your teams together. So although it wasn't formal, I've seen Friday happy hours where at the end of the day or we're at home anyway to enjoy a happy hour together or just to congregate on Friday. That's what happened at WBM. That's the only formal thing we did. Is at the end of the day we said we get together. It was great. We had all teams come in and drop at the AMA. We had people from our warehouse, people from service, members of the leadership team, members of the ownership group, members of the marketing team, as well as our experience team. And we just chatted. It was really nice at the end of the day Friday to be able to do that. So a great use for your internal teams, but it's also nice just to get everybody together. A little bit chaotic at times, but it was just what we needed to end the week last week. Just a little bit of encouragement and some good times for sure. And it's a great way just to keep in touch with your own organization. We love it when clients pop in, but we love it when fellow WBMers pop in as well.
I'm just seeing in the comment here, Tara from our audience has chimed in on the point of sale question. For e-commerce, joint payment solutions is a local provider. Square, PayPal, Stripe are good, but you want to look into the details, fees, and transaction costs prior to choosing a provider. Just not sure if everybody in our audience can see that response.
Let's post it in the chat. Thank you, Tara. Yeah, that's more than I knew about it, so that's good.
Okay. So I'm not seeing any more questions here unless somebody from the audience has one right away. I think we can wrap up, but again, I'll give it a couple more seconds and then. Okay, I haven't seen anything else coming in the Q&A, so I'll turn it back over to you, Jody, to close her off.
All right. Well, just a big thank you to the NSBA community for letting me come and speak. I got a chance to talk to Joanne about it. She was the one that alerted me, and she said that that this was the most fun community group that I could possibly be a part of. So hopefully I've shown some ways we can have some fun with this technology. I think it's incredibly important. Please, please make use of that link that I shared at the end. We'd love for you to drop in. We'd be more than happy to walk you through using some of these things, the Office 365 suite. But if you have another question just on how you use some technology, we'll do our best to help. That'll help us too, just to stay connected to this group, and really appreciate you having us in. Hopefully we'll get a chance to follow up in the coming weeks or months. So enjoy the rest of the webinar series, and thanks for inviting us out.